Welcome, and thank you for joining for another whiskey review. Today, we're going to take a look at the Glenlivet 17-year-old single cask strength. Dustin. This bad boy comes in at 60.8% ABV, 17 years old, refill sherry, but bottle 367 of 582. And buddy, let me tell you, we were eyeballing this one for a while. Comes in the Glenlivet 21 case, so I'm very well used to it. But this bad boy, we were eyeballing for a while. You picked it up. Glenlivet, which is basically known for mass-producing whiskeys, the 12, the 18, big sellers, the 15. This one here, my friend, single cask strength, sherry cask maturation. How good can a mass-produced 43% colored chill-filtered whiskey be when you don't do any of that?
Well, and now they're doing 40s.
Terrible.
They've been lowering their quality.
Terrible.
This is official bottling. This isn't some independent bottler. This is Glenlivet's exceptional casking. For me, Mike, Glenlivet's my first Scotch brand.
Yeah, it was one of the first 18-year-olds I ever had, for sure. I mean, yeah, I went through the Glenlivets, the Glenfiddichs very early in my whiskey journey. Yeah, it's all over it, buddy.
Love to stain my labels.
But yeah, I did all that.
But I mean, Glenlivet for me was literally like when I got into single malt Scotch, it was the brand to me.
Yeah. It
was like, all right, I'm going to try everything Glenlivet does, and then I'll branch out because I know Glenlivet is quality. Mm-hmm. Since we live and learn. They had some great stuff. Obviously, I really enjoyed the 18.
Good whiskey.
The 16-year Nadura was one of those surprise whiskeys because it was the first cask strength Scotch I ever had, and I was like, oh,
good whiskey.
Wow.
And I tell you what, Dustin, just for sake of transparency, this is cask number 14434.
U.S. exclusive, and by the way, they said it's refill. How the hell is it this dark? They put something in here for 3 days, and then they poured this in.
This looks like this is liquid plum. It's so dark. I mean, this is a different level of dark. Very, very dark.
Unbelievable.
And very excited to get to this. I've had one other cask strength one, an independent bottling, a Give and Tell dram full, which is a pretty good one, but that was bourbon. Man, sherried whiskey, 17 years old, big ABV.
I had a 15-year 5-line cask strength pour once that blew me away, so I know Glenlivet can do stuff.
Can you imagine if they're at 60% at 17 years, they're just watering that down like...
Yeah, they're putting a ton of water. They've got the highest barrel-proof whiskeys I've ever seen from Scotch.
17 years at 60% is substantial.
Well, and that's the way those Naduras were. The 16 years were very close to 60,
buddy.
If not, I mean,
chill filtering, all the other stuff. Shang Tsung.
Criminal freaking... I don't know if it says these are non-colored, to be honest, but I have to assume it would be. Why would you color it? Why would you color something like... I mean, and if they use that much coloring, jeez.
I tell you what, this smells incredible. We've had some good sherried whiskeys today.
This is it's so dense and dark. It's bringing in umami notes, dankness. I mean, cellar notes.
Yeah, it's almost like
grandma's
syrup.
basement.
Dense sherry syrup.
I'm even getting some really dense espresso notes that are normally when I get espresso it's bright and lively. This is dense, concentrated, and hidden under the sherry.
Espresso beans in the basement. Glenlivet has a very light profile in general. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it easy to take. Light herbal, a few things like that. Mm-hmm. But I can still get to it here. But the cask maturation is just taking over here.
That's what's interesting. It's there's this dense, dark, overwhelming thing up front, and then you keep nosing it, and you're actually getting that light, fruity Glenlivet distillate, which is weird that it's able to sort of escape this thing.
Agreed. Yeah, because it's not strong, and this is a strong cask maturation. Strong ABV.
It does illustrate that Glenlivet's not a super sweet malt, which I've never thought it was.
Agreed.
And so it's not adding sweetness to the sherry. It's letting the sherry be its dark, dirty, dank self.
No, it's actually a very complimentary spirit.
If you want earthy, herbal darkness, yes. Some people want the sweetness, like a Balvenie, to brighten up and make the sherry more lively, because sherry is a darker, denser kind of wine note than Balvenie is malt. And so when you put the two together, they become a candied thing. This is not candy. This is very dark.
No, even though you can smell the Glenlivet a little bit here, it's getting dominated for sure. It's getting drug around the yard.
The density on the nose is just incredible. It's insane.
That's, you know what? That's about what I expected it to smell like.
Some hints of hazelnut.
Yeah, the spices are there.
A little walnut.
A lot of shells. Peanut shell, walnut shell.
Old bomber jacket leather.
Yeah, with a slight dust and a salt.
Yeah. Old.
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything as strong as seashore, but just, salt that's been dried and insubstantial at this point, but still there on leather.
Yeah, very, very earthy. Nothing sour. No. Not super sweet. No vanilla here at all on the nose.
No, but nothing off-putting either.
No.
There's nothing like bitter or off-putting from the cask.
Clean, nice bit of oak.
It's not over-oaked. It's a nice oak.
I definitely think they picked a good time to pull this cask if they wanted to really showcase the sherry without letting it start getting bitter.
Yeah, I mean, for as dark as it is, it's amazing how dark it is and how it just comes off just very clean, nice, smooth sherry. Silky almost on the nose. And almost like, so when some of the older Glenlivets, they do come off sort of silky, even though insubstantial with lower ABV. They kept that here at a higher ABV. What are you picking up?
So, there's two concerns going into a bottle like this. One, proof's going to overwhelm. Two, it's going to get dark, bitter, and oaky because it's so dense. It worked well on both cases. The front, very approachable, milk chocolate, dense, but like it's actually a much sweeter palate than it is on the nose. Not super oaky at all, actually. I mean, there's nice oak here, but it's not oaky at all. Very just mellow. Now, I will say on the finish, going down, the alcohol kicked in a little harsh, and I'm going to be adding water here with the expectation of a nice improvement. Actually, man.
I had to go in twice.
No, I understand.
Big chocolate at first.
Huge, yeah.
Dark purple. Grapey sherry. Good cask maturation. This is a good sherry cask. What goes down this instant chocolate. Man, that's sharp, you're right. Something come off almost cherry soda pop.
Yeah.
Like right here on the finish. It's sparkling almost. Vanilla cherry soda, something like that. Goes back a little bit of plums. It gets dark. Chocolate settles in on the side for the finish. Man, ain't nothing off-putting. I mean, this is such a clean cask. I don't even know if that makes sense. But there is just nothing bitter, off-putting whatsoever. That high of an ABV and nothing that's there. It's so clean. I mean, it's earthy, but it's not dirty.
You know how we differed on the Boona 12 Cask Strength 2022 in that I felt it was a little too earthy, dark, and that's where I really enjoyed adding water, whereas you seem to like it regardless. Like,
correct.
This is definitely more earthy and dark than I prefer. Still, but with water, it really has kind of brought it down. But I just want to go back to that thought. If you're somebody who thought that Boona 2022 was a little earthy dark, this is a substantial move in the right direction for you while still being that old school, dark, dense whiskey. I'm actually going to add a little bit more water.
Glenlivet is like a comedian who doesn't swear. Sinbad would say. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like it kind of comes out, and this Glenlivet here is like, man, I mean, you tried to take the gloves off, but you're still a nice guy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the Wayne Brady of scotches, if you will.
I'm just breaking the format here, Mike. God, adding water to this one, it cleans up what I don't like, adds sweetness where I want it, balances it. And that's a funny thing to talk about here, but this is balanced, earthy sherry. It's not super sweet. It's not candy. This is not a kid's alternative. It's a very rich experience.
It's dry.
Man. Yeah, it's very dry.
Very dry.
It's dry red wine. Man.
You're right. And it's not sweet.
This is such an experience.
It's dark. It's purple.
The funny thing here I keep looking for, Mike? I keep looking for Pete. Because that's the one thing this needs with this level of darkness and dirtiness and sherry. And it doesn't have it because it's Glenlivet.
It does feel like there's just something missing. Like it needs something else to spice it
Like
up.
that's what I mean. Like I just keep coming back to like I've never had this dark and dirty of a malt where there wasn't some peat. I mean, it just even when I talk about that Boona, this like it's darker. It's just not as dirty and oaky. It's man, it's interesting. It's special.
I don't think to me it's not as dirty. You're right. There's earthy elements to this, but it's almost like looking at dirt behind a glass wall. Like, well, that's what dirt looks like in a museum. You know what I mean? Like I can tell, yeah, that's what it is. But I'm not getting any of that. I'm protected.
It's even a different kind of like sweet. Like it's not super fruity. The vanilla, there's basically no vanilla here. I mean, it's not a vanilla. I think that's what's missing here on the sweet side. You're used to like Glendronach, even some of the Springbanks. You get either like a vanilla or you get a sugar cookie. Like you get a sweetness. There's really not any of that like distinct. There's chocolate. It's a little milk chocolatey. I get a little bit of grape. Definitely some coffee, but that's not a sweet thing.
It's not a sweet thing. You could say grape is a sweet thing or purple sweet, but in this case, it's really not.
It's almost like a purple Play-Doh without getting that like saltiness.
Well, that's why I've always said before on some whiskeys is sugared plums or sugared raisins. Like there's no sugar on this whatsoever. It's like a sugar daddy with no money.
It's unsweetened grape extract,
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's very dry. Yeah, I mean, it's very dry. It's very plain. And with the typical sherry, overcoat sherry notes that you would typically expect to get in something like this.
Just it's a very sophisticated bottle. Yeah, I mean, very sophisticated. This is adults whiskey. This is not for kids.
This is a dead-faced comedians reading off lines.
Yeah, you are not winning over your friend who doesn't like whiskey yet with this bottle. This is for somebody who really has gotten into it. This is for somebody who really likes dark, dirty sherry. If they're a wine drinker, they're somebody who likes the really dry reds.
This is coming off very red wine now, and it's coming off very chalky red wine.
It is a little chalky, especially on the finish. It does pick up some dryness.
Dustin, what was this bottle?
$300, which for 17 years sounds exorbitant until you kind of get in this and you realize, man, this is a really well selected special cask. The density, the proof. Is it worth it? You can debate that. I'd say probably not something I'm happy to spend $300 on, but for this experience, it's well worth it.
I wouldn't have a collection of them.
I'm not buying another bottle of this cask. That said, I kind of want to try a less sherried cask to see what Glenlivet's doing with these. This is such sophisticated, mature whiskey from a brand that I think of as like entry-level Scotch to like bring you on board, where it's fruity and polite.
Yeah. It's a gentleman. It's easy to take. You can take everyone to the comedy show, and everyone's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. This is not relatable to somebody who's not a whiskey geek.
So here's the thing.
This is a whiskey geek's whiskey.
Anchorman, 3 Fingers of Glenlivet.
Yeah.
I think of Glenlivet, the standard offerings, is something you drink out of a standard glass, not a Glencairn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is restaurants, poor stuff like that.
It's an entry. It's about bringing people together. Mm-hmm. This is not about bringing people together. This is a special whiskey for that group of people who really like whiskey. Like you're not going to bring this out for your doctor friend who enjoys Glenlivet 25, but is really not ventured out beyond Glenlivet or Macallan. You're going to be like, nah, this isn't really for you. I mean, this actually tells me in a lot of ways that it's a less sweet, more sophisticated malt than I ever gave it credit for. That they've been blending it effectively to make it more palatable to the mass-produced audience that needs something a little, dare I say, sweeter, easier to drink.
That too.
No, I don't think Glenlivet's a shocking malt that's got all kinds of depth, but this is telling me, again, like it's not Balvenie that's got that sweet honey that's going to bring it forward and blend with it. They're very much like, no, we're actually kind of a malt that is for a sherry drinker to have sherry on it because we're dry, we're dense, we're going that direction.
So where are you as far as a whiskey score on this one?
This is a tough one, Mike.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
There's so many things I like here. Ooh, pencil shavings here at the end.
I'm getting like straight, like deep dark chocolate now.
Oh, I'm getting that too. Pencil shavings. Anyway, sorry. This is a really hard one to score. So let's just start with what we know. Good mouthfeel, good ABV, solid cask maceration, nothing off-putting. Nothing off-putting. I find it interesting, not overwhelmingly enjoyable. Dryness, a little bit empty on some of the flavors. The dryness is interesting. It's a whiskey I could go back to. So that already puts me at least a base standard of an 88. Is it worth an 89? At this point, I don't think so.
Add more water and try it again. Seriously. I'm gonna give this an 89, and I'm debating a 90, Mike. It did take me I think I went into water 3 times here, guys. You guys are watching. Let me know the count.
I see that put me at a base of an 88.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an 89.
But I think really when you bring in more water, it really unravels and opens up the chocolates. It gives it that extra oomph. And it's just so... It's unique and different in the way they've done this. Man, this dark, dense sherry. I mean, one more time, guys. Look at the freaking color on that thing.
That's real color right there. I'm convinced.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's as dense as that color looks, too.
I mean, the chocolate is bitter coffee chocolate. Mm-hmm. If you like dark... I mean, that chocolate note is as dark as this whiskey.
Yeah, yeah. Although, as you add water, it starts to brighten up and gives you a little bit of more of the milk chocolate notes.
And it is an absolutely impressive color. Incredible from the side. You can't see through it. Mahogany color. Mm-hmm. Incredible color. All right. 89. Happy?
I am.
I mean, again, there's nothing off-putting. It's getting a little dry, a little insubstantial in some of the notes, but if you like dark, bitter coffee chocolate, which is a little bit herbal,
yeah.
I'm going to love it. You'll love it.
Part of me thinks, even though we've got this down here, I'd like to spend more time with this in water to really, truly capture where its absolute peak is, because I bet you there is a 90, 91 potential whiskey here, because it just seems to, every time I add water, to get happier.
The more water you add, the more bitter it gets.
Oh, I'm not getting that at all. It's getting sweeter to me every time.
No, to me it's just chocolate, bitter dark chocolate coffee bean. The more water I add to it.
Oh, I disagree completely. Now there's
I mean, it's not a bad bitter. It's not a terrible bitter. It's just, but man, to me, it's very bitter.
It's bitter in general, but every time I add water, in the mid palate, I get more of the milk chocolate notes versus dark chocolate.
Dark chocolate and coffee all the way for me.
Definitely getting some coffee. Getting those espresso beans. Mm.
An interesting one that we've been eyeballing for a long time, and a whiskey that is unique in a lot of ways that I need to try a few sherries that are
60.8. That is
not overwhelming as far as cask mash or the distillery characteristic.
I mean, it really is. It really is a bottle and a half of whiskey when you compare it. It's like when you start thinking, even like at 50%. I mean, that is so much denser and richer.
And 17 years is a big age statement. That's not even medium aged whiskey. That's getting into well aged whiskey.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're almost at 18-year-old whiskey. Anyway, those are our thoughts on it. We're still going back, so obviously you can tell we're extremely interested in this.
Yeah.
If you guys had a chance to try any of these Glenlivet single casks, let us know what you guys think, especially if you had any the distillery bottlings. And just until next time, what do we wish the folks?
Happy drinking.
We'll see you then.